So Saturday morning, and we are off to the gym. I think Saturday morning is my favourite day to go training.
Mm.
I don't know why, but it always feels different in the gym, doesn't it, on a Saturday?
Yeah, less busy or more busy. Sometimes it's really, like, you know, jam-packed, or sometimes it's only a few people.
I don't know if it's how busy it is or not busy. I think it's more like the people that are in there because sometimes in the week, I don't know, people are in a bit of a rush to get back, but Saturday just feels like people are enjoying being in there, like it's a bit more social. So I think that's what it is. But I don't know. Personally, I enjoy the Saturday morning because usually we go and get our training done in the morning, and then we get home. You've usually got something planned go out with a friend or something, and then
I'm going out with my friend later.
yeah, you're out with your friend later, and then it usually feels like there's other stuff going on. So just like it's a good start to the day to get some training done. Um, your your session today is basically SBD, squat, bench, deadlift, but competitive sort of standards. So we're going to squat, bench, and deadlift just like we would if you're in a competition. Because I'm a little bit worried that we are doing things that are away from those skill sets more often now, and I don't want you to lose those skills, right? Because it's not just the commands or the way you set up or things like this. It's actually like the way you brace. You know, when we were doing like pre-competition and you were eventually hitting the singles at the end, you think about how often you're braced into the bout and how much tension you're creating, and that's a type of skill that you're not using the same way when you're doing the high volume work we're doing now. So that's part of the reason. So what we're going to do today, mate, is squat, bench, deadlift. You're going to not work in the singles. We're going to have a 3-rep working set at the top, and probably gonna squat something like what 75 kilos.
75, 70, deadlift about 80 to get my technique and my sumo.
Practicing the sumo, yeah.
And about 40, 45 for my bench press.
45, 40. To be honest, I reckon a top set of 47 and a half is probably going to work today fine. So
for freeze?
For free, yeah. Yeah, because you think about the volume that you've been hitting, I don't see 47 and a half for freeze being an issue. You did the 50 kilo for freeze the other week. I don't see it being a problem, and it's just something that's got to be done, mate. And then because you've got rugby tomorrow, I just want to be a little bit careful about the load we shift today, and also the amount of volume you accumulate, because like we're supposed to be doing like posterior chain accessories today, but I think if you do like loads of like sled drags or bout squatting and things like this,
I'm gonna be sore tomorrow.
Yeah, I think
tired.
I don't think you'll be sore tomorrow, but I think what will happen is there'll just be a point in that festival tomorrow where you'll just be tired.
Well, I'm just going to be hanging off the pitch.
Yeah, and and at the minute, like the thing for your rugby is we're trying to increase your work rate, and if I send you in there tired, then I've already put you on the back foot. So if we make a priority today that when you do your SBD, what you're trying to do is just show me really nice clean reps. So like with your squat, for example, as you've got taller, we're trying to get rid of that little tip forward. We're going to work on that. You know, I told you that cue the other day where you took your chin in. Yeah. Remember I said? So there's ways of fixing the squat, but when you tip forward, and a lot of people think it's purely to do with your abdomen, not recruiting enough tissue or whatever, but not being strong enough. But I'm not 100% sure that's the case for you. I think it's just the fact that you've grown, and we need to look at ways of changing the way we cue it. So I think we'll get that chin tucked in, mate. A really fat-faced chin, and then I think it'll make a difference to how you squat. And I know it sounds bizarre, just like tucking your chin in, but I think it's one of them things that's going to make a big difference. Sunny, innit? What's the other thing I'm going to say to you? Yeah, your sumo deadlift. Obviously, you're learning the sumo at the minute.
Yeah.
So I quite like that in your warm-up sets, we're going to put a little hover in. So I want you to take the stress out of the bar, take the slack out of the bar, and then I want you to hover and then pull. Does that make sense? So I don't want you to rush the reps. I want you to show me you can pull the slack out of the bar, and then you can keep that nice torso. I want to see that the top of your head is a little bit more like a puppet on a string, so your top of your head is more upright. And and that's the cue today. We're really focusing on the top of the head being a little bit higher, so you're going to sink down to the bar rather than just hinge across it. And if we work on those things, mate, and nice clean reps, we'll be out at the gym in plenty of time to get back for your little social Saturday. Whatever you're doing, mate. Where are you going?
I think we're going to the park.
Just the park.
I don't know.
You know about sumo deadlift? Have you ever heard in the gym people say like sumo's not a real deadlift?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Or like, have you ever seen it on the internet? People sort of say that it's not a proper deadlift.
It's a cheat way.
Cheat.
I've heard people say it's a cheat way, but it's really not. There's a lot more to it. There's a lot more to sumo deadlift than what's it called?
Conventional.
Yeah.
What is a lot more? What do you mean?
There's
Like
a lot more to think about. You have to bring your hips forward. You have to drive your knees out, toes out. There's just a lot more to it, really.
the thing is, what this is the thing. As you get older and you get exposed to social media and things like this, you're going to see that people say stuff about types of lifting, or they say things about doing a thing a certain way. But people just aren't intelligent, mate. People don't put the thought process into it that you or I want. Okay, so there are reasons for people thinking that about the sumo deadlift. The main one is people see somebody with a really, really wide stance and they're not pulling as far, right? So sometimes people see that as like, wow, they've reduced the range of movement, so it's not a proper deadlift. But it's not as simple as that.
I used to see a lot of like people having really, really wide stance and putting their like hands basically, knuckles touching basically.
Yeah. And
But how I do it is where the inside of my thigh is.
Yeah.
I put my outer arm on the side.
Yeah, your arms are touching your legs. Yeah, you've got kind of a hybrid version. So it's like this, like there's kind of stages with the sumo for me. Like, when you were very little, like when you were a toddler, in fact, when you were like one and a half, we used to have the kettlebells in Adrian's living room. Do you remember? It used to be on like a shelf in the corner. When you get a child to pick up like a load off the ground, what they'll do is the load will be like close to them, and they'll typically go to that sumo kind of stance. Like your sister at the minute, if you put a kettlebell in front of her, she sumo deadlifts.
She's like doing the splits.
Yeah, she drags it up, and then she'll make a big grunty face. But she's like, oh, it's really heavy, that. But it's natural, right? So when people are very, very little, there is a case for teaching that kind of angry gorilla pose with a wider stance for the reasons we just said, because reducing the range of movement and you can bring the hip through more aggressively. But when you get a little bit older, and when I started coaching you how to squat, how to deadlift, I didn't coach you the sumo deadlift, and the reason for that is I want to make a very clear distinction between a squat pattern behaviour and a hinge pattern behaviour. So like when you were about 2.5, 3 years old, and we started to look at like what a squat is and what a hinge pattern is, I wanted you to know that like a squat is maximal hip and maximal knee. So that's a really obvious pattern of behaviour. Your hips bent as much as it can, goes back as far as it can, and the knees bent as much as it can. But when you're deadlifting, it's maximal hip and minimal knee, right?
Mm.
So the knee doesn't bend as much. It's maximal hip, minimal knee. So if I start teaching the sumo to that age demographic, what happens is like they get confused, don't they? Like you've seen people go to set up a bar to lift something, and they basically squat, don't they?
Yeah.
And so if you're trying to coach someone to learn different patterns,
how I do it is I do like a normal deadlift halfway through, then I go into the squat. You know,
with a sumo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just pop your legs instead of bring your hips forward.
Well, the sumo just get like, the conventional deadlift for years, it was like a way of me teaching you, well, this is a hinge and this is very different to a squat. And also, what other reasons do you think I might use a conventional for most of your juvenile development?
I don't know.
If you think about the range of movement, like if you think about it, like it's a longer distance to pull an object. So when I'm teaching you to start moving that way, I'm seeing it as though I'm getting more bang for my buck because you're having to keep a nice tall torso, a neutral spine, and you're pulling the bar a long way, right?
Yeah.
But what's happened now is you've got to a stage in your life where, like just before we started to go to America to compete, you sort of grew a bit, didn't you?
Yeah, especially my feet. They grew loads. I'm now size 8.
Yeah, your
I'm
feet.
11 yet.
Your feet got bigger, and your torso got longer. I don't think your femurs got much longer, but you can definitely see like a growth spurt in your torso, and that's affected a few things about the way that you pull.
My chest falls forward easier.
When you squat, yeah, but like when you deadlift, like
No, I'm in my deadlift. Like when I start to pull, my chest just falls forward.
but the thing is, like when you deadlift, in the conventional stance, what's happening is you are quad dominant, and just like your dad, just like me, right? You're quad dominant, and you're strong in your upper back. So we know that, like, if you're lifting something for a 1 rep, like a very heavy load, you're going to see some element of form breakdown. So long as you've got midline capacity, so long as you're strong and your belt is full, we allow for that a little bit, right?
Mm.
But what's happening is as you've got older and you've got taller, you're pulling mostly with your upper back and your quads. And what we need to see is that your glutes are coming through more aggressively, your hips are more aggressive.
And also, something I'm struggling with in my deadlift at the moment is sitting back in my hips and then starting to pull.
What, with the sumo?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So basically,
if I don't sit back, then my hips easily just come up. The first thing that moves is my hip.
yeah.
Not the bar, not my chest, it's my hip.
Well, the thing, yeah, because what was happening is your bum was starting to rise first, but we want to create a much more aggressive wedge into the bar. So what I felt was that we need to train your body to start pulling the hip aggressively to the bar, and if we'd have just continued as we were with the conventional style, what would have happened was you become more quad dominant and more upper back dominant, and like it's not. Remember, we're not training powerlifting to be like the best powerlifter of all time. You know, you're training because you want to play rugby, right?
Mm.
And this is just like part of your ongoing development. So,
but we didn't just start training because I wanted to play rugby.
no, I know we're training for life, right? But we know at the minute that you do want to play rugby, and to be good at rugby, you need to be a bit more explosive and have a bit more dynamic hip behaviour, which we've lost a little bit over the last year or so. So, I think that switching to sumo at this stage. One, it's going to teach you a new skill, which I think at your stage of development is helping you to like think a bit more about how you're moving.
Mm.
It's going to reduce the weight you're lifting, which is useful now because we don't want ego creeping it in and just start going, oh, I've set these records, so I'm going to start lifting heavy. We've got to step back a little bit and readdress some mechanical problems. It's good for your development to step back. And your sport is going to benefit loads from having a much more aggressive hip behaviour. And the last thing on that is like your squat. If you're going to set records next year, right, your squat you need to add 12.5 kilos to your squat, and I think you can do that comfortably. But I think the sumo variation at this stage will help you get a bigger squat as well.
Mm.
You know, much because at the minute you're driving up with through the legs, through the floor, pushing the floor away, and then you're kind of like starting to almost like not good morning, but there's a slight element of that, like start to lift. Do you know what I mean? Like lifting your
so
back.
you go up, fall forward, and then come back up.
So I want to see you sit into the hole and stand up and throw your hips forward aggressively, and I think that's going to come on leaps and bounds on your sumo. So whenever you hear people saying, "Oh, sumo's not a genuine deadlift or whatever," I mean that's just total ignorance, isn't it?
Mm.
I mean, like you haven't gone to sumo deadlift and thought, "Oh, this is easier," have you?
No.
There is one side to that though. Like we're in the States. I did see some kids. I don't want to slag anyone off or don't say any names, right? But I did see some kids who they basically weren't particularly strong, so they'd got an exceptionally wide stance, and they just desperately tried to drag this bar out their body. And in those cases, I think people had used the sumo variation to reduce range of movement, but they hadn't mastered the skill. But what you're doing is more like a hybrid variation, isn't it? It's kind of like, did I ever show you Ed Cohen's, the powerlifter Ed Cohen? Did I ever show you his deadlift?
I've heard of it. I don't know if I saw him.
But he made a video for you for your America.
Yeah, I know who he is, but I don't think I've seen him deadlift.
It's kind of, like Elliot in the gym, like Elliot's style, like that kind of hybrid where your stance isn't really, really wide, but you have your hands quite close on the inside. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So I think that the problem with sumo deadlifting is people that slag it off, or people that don't know what they're talking about. They don't really understand the technical side to it. They don't know how to generate force through the hip. They don't know how to create tension or when to pull the slack. I think there's a big misunderstanding. You're still going to conventional deadlift because I think it's useful to have, to have that skill in your arsenal. But that's it. There's other stuff like, in warm up. Have you ever got like 2 dumbbells, heavyish dumbbells, and open your hips aggressively like a sumo stance?
No, I've done it like a conventional like that.
Like a RDL.
I've done that before, but not like a sumo.
Well, like sometimes I'll pick up 2 dumbbells and I'll set up a sumo style stance, and I'll just go through that range of motion, bring my hips through, bring my chest up. I'm not saying it looks that pretty, but it's a really good warm up. I get to engage my lats, get my hips through, use my glutes.
I don't actually have a stance for my sumo deadlift. Like, I haven't decided how wide or how thin I go. So every single time I deadlift, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go quite wide for this one. Feels okay.
Yeah.
But then I go like quite a bit more in.
We're still learning, aren't we?
So I haven't really decided yet. So.
But you're still learning, and you've got to take advice from people in the gym, people who are experienced lifters, and you've got to do your research. And look, this is my opinion. I reckon what will happen is you'll eventually nail the technique, and that will come from spending time practicing, and like the partial range, like the hover pauses, and the pause variations, and the slow tempo work. I reckon. My feeling is that as soon as you nail it, and it will just click, and it'll just go. And I think your deadlift and your squat will fly consequently. But if I just said, we keep lifting conventional and we keep doing the same things, I think what's going to happen is you just won't advance. So we have to advance. We have to advance you a little bit, by changing what we do. Do you know what the definition of madness is? Have you heard that phrase? Definition of madness is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Yeah. So there we go. So whenever you see anyone on the internet or anyone in the gym saying that sumo is this or conventional is this, you've just got to think, well, what's the outcome or what we're trying to achieve, There's a lot of snobbery in gym culture about doing the right thing, but really it's about getting the stimulus you want from the movement. I'll give you an example. I know it sounds pathetic, but because I've been training a bit more volume recently, and trying to get I'm working like that kind of bro split. When I used a Smith machine the other day, and you did as well, didn't you? And because I've never been a fan of the Smith machine,
I don't really like it. No,
I don't like it, but like in our gym, we don't have a hack squat, right? So putting your feet forward when you squat with the Smith machine and leaning back into the bar, it's not teaching you how to squat efficiently, but it does give you a lot of stress. But if you have a wide stance and you're looking for a glute dominant behaviour with a wide stance, and you sit back onto the bar, you really feel your glutes screaming at you. And if you do the narrow stance, close to it's quads, isn't it? So it's definitely got its place. And I'm only squatting like 70 kilo on the Smith machine, and I was exhausted. So you mustn't ever listen to people when they say things like that's right or wrong. It's always about what you're trying to achieve from the movement. You need some sunglasses, mate.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have broke your sunglasses.
I don't know how they broke.
Well, I know how they broke. You were messing around with them and they broke.
No. I just got them out the car when we were in America. And they just broke.
They just magically broke.
Yeah, they just magically broke.
Well, you have to suffer your eyes burning. Anyway, I'll tell you what it is today. It is 37 years since the release of Slayer's Reign in Blood.
27 years.
Yeah. Today is the anniversary of Reign in Blood. So what we'll do now is we'll turn off the video and we will blast Reign in Blood for about 5 minutes. Okay guys, see you later.
Bye.